Nothing's being ruined when they suddenly aren't coming home for dinner every day. That time comes, I think, for a lot of moms sooner than they were expecting. And we don't even realize that we were thinking of our little family as our project to keep together.
Mystie, as you look at your two adults who are now out of the home, you've got one married, you've got one in college. Talk about what that transition was like for you. And then I want to talk about, like, as those moms who are listening, who have little kids, telling you guys it's going to be here very, very quickly, how we can actually prepare our children to launch into adulthood in a way that is honoring to the Lord.
Yeah, it is a big project.
Project is a good word.
And I think it's so tempting, especially as a homeschooling family, to think of having your family in the home as your project, where you get really focused on our relationships, which are super important, and we need to be focused on them. But to start thinking of the end goal as being our relationships.
Yeah.
But the relationships do change, and they're supposed to change. And so we do want to be building and nurturing them, but with the goal of those children being adults, not in our home, instead of thinking of our goal for our home and our family being about all of our family being home and around the dinner table and all of that. I think family dinners are super important, but the dinners are important because of, the conversations and how much teaching and relationship connections are happening there.
Yeah.
As a tool that's helping them become adults. And so nothing's being ruined when they suddenly aren't coming home for dinner every day. And I think that's it. That time comes, I think, for a lot of moms sooner than they were expecting.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize that we were thinking of our little family as our project that to keep together.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when one starts leaving, because it's a gradual process.
Sure.
It's not usually, suddenly they're gone.
Right.
It's like they get a driver's license.
Right.
And they take
I was going to say,
classes.
it's when they get that license and they can go out on their own.
They get a job.
Yep.
And now you're not the only one in charge of their schedule.
Yeah, that's right.
These little baby steps. And that the family that we are creating in our home is a multiplying force, not a stable unit, not a static unit that's supposed to be one thing. Mm-hmm. It's a training ground, and they're supposed to graduate out.
Yeah.
And the relationship does change. And I know it's especially hard, I think, when the oldest are like 12 or 13, it's easy to start feeling as a mom like, okay, so we really don't have that much time left. So right now they should be like, this is what they are. And that's nerve-wracking because they are not ready to handle life at all at that age, but they often think they are. And so much maturity and rocky roads can happen between that like 12 to 18 time frame. And I think we need to be prepared for that so that we don't try keeping them close in a way that's inappropriate for that stage of life. Mm-hmm. Like keeping them close for training is appropriate when they're younger.
Yeah.
And then they have to start testing the waters independently, and they have to actually fail at things and do things without you. And I think, I'm sure that it's different. I haven't yet launched a girl. Uh-huh. I've launched 2 boys.
Yeah.
And, they don't want mom to tell them what to do anymore.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good thing. Like that they need to go through that phase to become men.
Right.
And we need to remember that that is what we want. We don't actually want them to stay children. So we need to not treat them as children. We need to start treating them as adults as soon as we can. I think after they hit the teen years.
Yeah.
As practice for us and for them, because we know that our goal is actually that they become responsible adults out on their own, starting their own family units that are distinct from ours.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be excited to see what they do. We've given them something, and then it's not on us anymore what they do with it.
Yeah.
And also what they do with it right away isn't necessarily the way it's going to play out. Like, I think, I was the oldest and got married young. And one of the things both my husband and I said when we were new parents at 21, I said, well, here are all the problems with homeschooling. And some of those we weren't wrong. Like there can be issues.
Sure.
And there can be problems, but we were very critical and proud and overconfident.
Yeah.
And so we got on the board to start a school, and that didn't happen. And so at first, homeschooling was our plan B. Like, okay, well, we can if we have to.
Right.
And then we got going, and a few years in, it was like, oh, this is such a blessing. And we were so ungrateful.
Yeah.
And then, so one of the things that I like to tell my kids is, you'll thank me when you're 30.
Right. Because their perspective is so different at that point.
Yes. Yeah. And so like, just hang in there for the long haul, mom. And when your 12-year-old or 13-year-old is telling you all the things that you're doing wrong,
right.
Like, well, that's maybe going to be the lessons. What you're noticing are the lessons you're going to be learning as an adult. And we'll see.
Right. It is so funny to look back. We also got married young. We got married at 20. We had just turned 20, engaged at 19. And I look at my 20-year-old self and I'm like, man, I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew some stuff, but I mean, 30 years later, I'm a completely different person than I was when I got married. And that's how it's supposed to be. You know, you look at the progression of our kids, your 15-year-old is completely different than they were when they were 5. And your 25-year-old is completely different than they were when they were 15. I mean, that is the progression of life. We're growing. And part of that is growing in our walk with the Lord. We're growing in our maturity. We're growing as just human beings. You realize who people are and how people respond to life and how people react to things and what it looks like to be a responsible human being. I look back, I'm like, man, I did some really dumb things and really immature things, but I also did some things that were right and made some decisions. I think about, of course, my two biggest decisions. Of course, I tell this to my girls all the time. The two biggest decisions you'll ever make are your decision to follow Christ and the man that you choose to marry.
Mm-hmm.
By God's grace, he gave me an amazing husband. We've been able to, do ministry together for many years and stuff, but it hasn't always been easy. And as we've grown as people and as a couple and as our family has grown, we can look back and go, okay, well, we made some mistakes, and we have to remind ourselves too, Brooklyn, so, she's not making a disaster of her life by any means, but there are some decisions that she's made that we're like, I wouldn't have done it that way, and I have to remember she's not mine. She belongs to the Lord. She doesn't belong to me. And just because her decision is different doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different, but it's hard to, close your mouth sometimes and throw away that key and go, oh,
it's like, I will not see the fast food wrappers in your car.
You're eating at Taco Bell again for the 5th time this week.
Your paycheck.
Right. Exactly.
And that is, I think, especially hard for the homeschool mom who's been so involved for so long.
Yes, right.
To start letting that go and realize.
So hard.
If you think of, yourself back at that age, now you know that you didn't know that much.
Right.
But also at the time, you were pretty sure you did.
Right. You didn't know that you didn't know.
And it's like now the tables are flipped.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to convince your kids that they don't know as much as they think they do, because now you know them.
Right.
Realize, oh, who in your life at that time was telling you that you didn't listen to?
Right. Yeah.
And now you need to take that place.
Yes.
Like, what should that person?
Yeah.
How could you have received something from that person? And like, okay, they were right and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And this is about me repenting and maturing myself in a new stage of life.
Right.
Where now I say all those annoying things that the older ladies at the grocery store said.
Yeah. But it's so interesting because even at the stage of life that I'm at right now, my mom, who's 77 years old, she'll talk with me and in a very loving and kind way. She'll say, I remember when you first got out, when you first moved out on your own. And, I struggled with this, and this. And she's helping to guide me through this new phase of life. Mm-hmm. But now I know, okay, I can listen to my mom and I know that what she's saying is wise, and I don't have to agree with everything that she's saying and all the advice that she gives. But a lot of it, I'm like, oh, Mom, that's such good advice. I'm so glad you told me that because you've been through it before. And so I know for certain that I'm going to look back in 30 years at my, 50-year-old self and go, oh, yeah, I didn't know all the things I thought I knew at 50. Mm-hmm. I know so much more now at the age of, 77 or 80 years old because I've had more life experience. And so, our kids are learning these things. Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.